This episode of the LCTV News is brought to you by Encompass Health, Rehabilitation Hospital of New England, and North Shore Community College. If you have the will to attend college, we have the way for you to earn your degree.
Good morning, I'm Dani Vittori, and this is LCTV News. Whether this is your first or 50th time watching, I say welcome. Headlines this week are a mix of community and government events. We have another double lowdown as Senator Brendan Crighton came on to discuss the Sumner Tunnel Mitigation Plan, and one of the founders of the Lynn Music Foundation shed some light on their future plans. Here's the news for Friday, July 14th, 2023. Beginning this upcoming fall, North Shore Community College will be offering their liberal arts associate degree in both English and Spanish through a dual language pathways program. According to Director of English Second Language Navigation, Elizabeth Paz, 28% of their population is Spanish speaking, as indicated by their recent distinction as a Hispanic serving institution. Paz believes this will increase the amount of students transferring to other Massachusetts state universities, as well as increasing their likelihood of graduation. Rather than looking at speaking another language as a deficit, this program will seek to earn students recognition for bilingual skills and complete requirements for the degree they are pursuing. The program will be offered in two groups, fully Spanish and English with Spanish support. Several council members invited members of the community to ride the ferry to Boston to raise awareness for this alternative method of travel. 200 people showed up to enjoy the ride and the views. Here is more from the event.
I would like to say thank you to everyone who attended our first ever city ferry ride, Lynn to Boston and back. We have more than 200 people showed up. This is an idea created by my fellow city councilors, so shout out to all of them.
This is our first time riding on this ferry since it opened last June 26th. And it's a good experience. It's really nice. It's very smooth, and it's a good experience for a ferry, for us.
And we're only 5 minutes from the house
yes.
to get to board there.
Yes.
Just across the Linway, so
yeah.
This is a treat for us. This is the first time we've been on it, and to know that we can get into Boston fairly quickly and cheaply,
yeah.
It's really good.
I found it very fun, and I like the rocky waves, enjoying the bounces. It made me scared, and I like being scared.
This would be my first experience on a ferry, and for my first experience, I would say it is really fun, and I really enjoy it for my first time. And I really hope that you guys might come on here someday because it's really fun. The bobbing waves are absolutely amazing, and the ride is just really satisfying in general.
Hey, my name's Abel Matul. This is Arisbeth Matul. We're here in Boston Harbor. We just took the ferry to Boston, and it has been a very, very pleasant experience. The atmosphere is just amazing. The ride itself was very pleasant. It wasn't as long as I thought it would be. Very, very smooth ride all the way into Boston, and the weather was just amazing too.
This is a fun way for our residents to experience it. We're doing this again every Friday, so watch out for more announcements.
The Concerned Citizens of Lynn, in collaboration with Councilor-at-Large candidate Roger Garcia and Ward 1 Councilor candidate Dr. Pete Meany, are beginning a month-long food drive starting tomorrow, July 15th. Anyone wishing to participate can bring non-perishable food items to one of 4 locations: Broadway Family Dental, April's Restaurant, Hood Inc., or full-color signs and graphics. Concerned Citizens of Lynn will be responsible for the distribution of food once the drive is completed, and they will provide updates as food is collected and plans are finalized. This drive is being organized as another way to combat food insecurity in the city. The first in a series of summer movie nights was hosted at Goldfish Pond this past Saturday the 8th. Families enjoyed a free movie and popcorn against the backdrop of the pond and surrounding wildlife. Take a look.
We're having our annual movie night here at the pond. We're all volunteers with Goldfish Pond. We help maintain the pond and we run all the events.
Typically we do choose a children's movie and we try to find something with a diverse character list so it reflects the neighborhood too.
The Goldfish Pond Association is all volunteers. It's been around since 1980 when it was started by Gerard Dwan when the area had fallen into a little bit of disrepair. But it's all volunteers. He put it together and he pulled together a neighborhood organization that does a lot of things besides running different events, sponsoring events.
It's unbelievable how many people we see this every year. They come consistently. We have really, GPA has definitely developed a sense of community here.
We want the kids to get to use and be welcome here at the pond, to know that it's part of the neighborhood and that it's partly for them to share in it. We also would like to at least encourage them at some point to become volunteers here. There's a couple of kids who come around and help us pick up the trash and stuff like that.
And we also enjoy the kids coming out to have a sense of community with all of us because it is our community and it is very diversified. So this is an event that brings us all together.
Over the course of a 1-week period, the police and EMS personnel responded to 5 opiate overdose incidents, including 2 by the same individual. All the victims were male, between 14 and 20 years old, and of Hispanic Central American descent. At the time of this press release, 1 such individual remains in critical condition in Boston, with the other 3 having recovered after further evaluation. Additionally, on Tuesday, another man overdosed on the steps of City Hall and was saved using Narcan by the interim health director, MJ Duffy Alexander. The main concern of the police and the health department is to prevent further overdoses and find the source of the substances, which were believed to be heroin when ingested by the youths. It is likely they were laced with fentanyl, which can be extremely potent and deadly. If you or someone you know is using illegal substances, there is help available from the Behavioral Health Unit, Elliott, and the Massachusetts Substance Abuse Hotline. The 4th of July parade was rescheduled due to rain to Sunday the 9th. Kids of all ages participated in a parade, competitions, and candy drops. Take a look.
Well, first off, we start with parade. We're accompanied by the Lynn Fire Department and also the Lynn Police Department. Well, I moved to this neighborhood 22 years ago, and my girls, Nicole and Danielle, they went down to the festivities, and then there was a great group of ladies that ran it, and it was passed to me. But I love this event. I love 4th of July. I love to see all the families and the kids come together and have a good time on 4th of July. We do 50-yard dash, we do a wheelbarrow race, we do a hula hoop contest. We also do an egg toss. And this year we incorporated an ice cream truck for the kids and also pony rides. We have face painting, and also in the concession stand we are giving out popsicles and popcorn. You know, the ladies that helped me out this year, Stephanie Vasquez, Renee Hickey, and Melanie and Jamal Shaya, they helped out big time with donating and running a 50-50 and also having a fundraiser at Prince of Pizza, but they were a big help this year also. And also my family, my daughters, Danielle and Nicole, my husband, Glenn, they helped me out so much, you know, with running the event, be giving out the awards.
Diverse People United organized Occupy Wyoming Square in 2020 and 2021. This year, on July 4th, 2023, they expanded the event and renamed it Liberation for All. They added a community gathering to the protest and march and began the event with speakers who focused on Black power, liberation, and independence. Then it was time to march from Manning Field to Wyoming Square, as they have done in previous years, for the reading of the Frederick Douglass speech, "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." Mayor Nicholson presented a citation to Jim Cowdell and EDIC for all their work hosting a SCORE branch in Lynn for 18 years, leading in clients and quality ratings for the last 14. Here's a clip from the event.
Extend our most sincere congratulations to the Greater Lynn Chamber of Commerce and SCORE in recognition of their dedicated service and hosting a SCORE branch for 18 years. Congratulations.
SCORE is a free business counseling for startup companies, people looking to advance their companies, and it's all free. So back, I believe, in 2005, was it, that the Chamber partnered with SCORE, and nationally, we are the only chamber to host a SCORE office. And we have heard that other states in the country are trying to replicate what we do with EDIC. So with the EDIC and with the SCORE, we're trying to enhance businesses in Lynn, help them grow and then keep their businesses here in Lynn.
So EDIC only does Lynn businesses. One of the things that SCORE does, though, when somebody comes to us with an idea, I like cooking, I want to open a restaurant, the first step is we sit down with Peter Colarusso and they develop a business plan, which is the first step in going through the lending process. So yeah, it's for Lynn businesses and it's really been a home run.
And what does this recognition mean to you especially?
I just think it solidifies what we're trying to do, both of our businesses. We are trying to make businesses successful, and having the backing of Mayor Nicholson is huge, and he helps pave the way for what we're trying to do.
I'm just a product of Lynn, born here, raised here, educated here. So if we can help in a small way make this city improve, then I'm really happy.
On Tuesday the 11th, City Council voted to approve 2 lease agreements with the MBTA for the construction of a temporary commuter rail platform. There's been frustration expressed by the council over the current timeline, which has the temporary platform being completed in the spring of 2024. The design was completed last month on June 6th with an inbound platform at Ellis and Silsby Street and the outbound one at Friend and Silsby Street. At Ellis, the lease is for temporary construction access and interim platform use. For Friend Street, it is an emergency egress gate for the tracks and primary station access through easements. There has also been talk by the mayor's office about keeping part of the original platform open during the renovation process, but that is still in conversation phase. Receivership has been introduced as a last resort for properties if the owner cannot be found or the building cannot be brought back up to code. This began with the Housing Production Plan and expanded to include collaborations with Mass Housing, the Attorney General's Office, and a $200,000 grant by the Neighborhood Hub Grant. Lynn is fortifying their ability to petition the Essex County Housing Court to place a property into receivership if it is deemed necessary. It is part of an extensive legal process where every effort is made to bring the property back up to code by the owner. The first time it was used in Lynn, the owner had died 20 years prior, and the house was never placed in probate. Currently, the police and fire departments, along with contractors and developers, are working together to determine the best practices when looking at other parts of the state. If receivership is deemed necessary, the receiver gets temporary control of the property, with any restorative costs and unpaid taxes being paid by the owner of that property. First up on the lowdown is the state senator for the 3rd Essex District, Brendan Crighton. Senator Crighton came on to discuss the Sumner Tunnel Mitigation Plan, how the delegation crafted the plan, and what their goals are for the future. Here is the lowdown. Hello and welcome to the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Dani Vittori, and today we have on Senator Brendan Crighton from the Massachusetts State Senate. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Dani. Appreciate you having me on.
You were here to talk about things on a lot of people's minds, the mitigation plan for the Sumner Tunnel that you and the delegation have been working on.
Absolutely. So it's obviously a big inconvenience for so many riders across the North Shore, but really across Greater Boston. Something that's been on our mind for quite some time. Obviously, the Sumner's close to 100 years old. It needs to be replaced. They've been doing weekend closures for quite some time, causing huge disruptions at Logan. But coming into this year, at the beginning of the year, it was planned for a 4-month shutdown of the tunnel. So the delegation, Rep. Cahill, Rep. Capano, Rep. Armenian, Rep. Wong, myself, reached out to our new governor, Maura Healey, and their team and said, quite frankly, we're not ready for this. Four-month shutdown with really no mitigation in place. So looking for alternative sources, increased subway, affordable subway, commuter rail, and ferry. We had none of that lined up. So I really applaud the Healey-Driscoll administration for listening to us, for working with us. Almost immediately after that call, they shortened it from 4 months to 2 months. Granted, you have another summer for that, but that's some of our lowest traffic impact during July and August. And then shortly thereafter, they implemented a working group to really focus on mitigation, which I think they knocked it out of the park. No matter what, this is going to be a headache, but we needed to make sure that riders had different options. And really excited about the ferry, the Blue Line, as well as the commuter rail.
You said there were a lot of different options. I mean, I rode the ferry just kind of for fun the other day, and it is now a viable option for commuters to use.
Absolutely. I mean, 34 minutes for $2.40 each way, free parking, really for a commute that prior to the Sumner Tunnel would be over an hour from our station into the State House. So you really cut down on your trip time. It's an enjoyable ride. You can sit back, read a book, enjoy your breakfast, enjoy the views. It's really a great way to travel, and longer term really makes a lot of sense as a transportation option. Certainly helps increase economic development in the area, as well as housing production, and just that economic mobility to make sure that folks can get where they need to go in a quick time.
And another thing that you mentioned too was some of the things that the MBTA had done. There were some reduced fares, some with the free Blue Line at certain times, so that was also another option?
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that we should have in normal times anyways, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so many folks on the North Shore can't afford that $7 one-way trip from a commuter rail station. Again, a commuter rail station that is now closed in Lynn. Again, working on that separately, but reducing it to $2.40 makes it a reasonable way for folks to get to work. And then on the ferry end, again, $2.40, and Blue Line, free Blue Line, which is really unprecedented, as well as a significant reduction in their parking along the Blue Line, so it's only $2. So really viable alternatives for the summer, but also things we want to see considered for the future as well.
And it's you, and you mentioned several representatives. How did you all work together to create this mitigation plan that, like you said, not only is used for now, but could be, options for the future?
Absolutely. So I mentioned mostly the Lynn reps, but we've certainly been working with the entire North Shore, so from Boston up, to really make the case that anytime you're going to close down a mode of transportation, there needs to be mitigation. And one area we saw that fail again was when the Lynn station, commuter rail station, was closed. The delegation stepped up, was able to prolong it for a certain period of time, but obviously some safety issues with the station came up and we had to close it. But it's inexcusable that the previous administration had no plans in place at all for mitigation. So we were left with a shuttle that takes us backwards against the direction you're going to Swampscott, additional time to commute. And even at the time, they weren't offering reduced fares. So we really need to get a temporary platform in place at the commuter rail to restore full service there. Something the delegation is very committed on. But again, for our riders, we feel your frustration. We are very, very frustrated by how we've been treated in terms of transportation access and transit access throughout our history here in Lynn.
And you mentioned too, how long did it take you to create this plan? You mentioned the beginning of this year.
So we started talking, as soon as we knew the Sumner was closing, it was, all right, so what are our options? And immediately, we look back to the ferry, and the ferry had been here previously, going back a decade ago. Mayor and Senator McGee, Senator McGee at the time, had worked with the city, Jim Cowdell, EDIC, to really advance that project to build a top-notch, brand new ferry terminal. We had 2 years of service, and then when Governor Baker came in, he ended service there. But the enthusiasm we've seen from the riders, as well as transportation officials, our elected leaders here, continues to drive that issue. And we were able to secure over $1 million in legislation last year to go towards this specific operation. And moving forward, I think we need to look towards the water, and not just in Lynn, but the entire coastline. We're one of the few states or places in the country that doesn't utilize its water for transportation. And when you think of the costs associated with rolling stock, the trains you need, the tracks, the right-of-ways that come with running a public transportation system on the subway, bus or commuter rail end, very expensive to operate. You go to the water, the water's there, right? You just need to more or less pay for operations and making sure your equipment's up to grade. So in the future, we'd love to see this continue. It shouldn't just be a 2-summer thing. And the ridership numbers have been huge down there already, and we haven't even seen the full impact of the Sumner Tunnel just yet.
Like you said too, it's more certain other ways are more expensive, but it's also like even driving in Boston, it's a bit of a disaster now, I won't even lie. So if you have an alternative that's cleaner energy and just overall more efficient, why not use it?
Absolutely. I think, the stress alone from someone that commuting to Boston regularly, and it is hopping on the ferry is a whole different world. And again, I think here on the North Shore, we have a fairly robust bus service, but when it comes to near rapid or rapid transit, we've really been shortchanged. The ferry is a step in the right direction. We need that temporary platform for our commuter rail station, but we also need to look to a commuter rail that's more fit for today's modern age and our workforce today. So, it's really designed using old equipment, again, spewing diesel and particulate matter into the air, obviously harming the environment and the public health of everyone along that line. If we're able to electrify this line, which we continue to push for as a delegation in the city as well with Mayor Nicholson and the City Council, to create almost a subway type system around that line, trips every 7 to 10 minutes, more reliable trips, more frequent obviously, and more affordable. That's a real solution, I think, long term for an area that is just stuck in some of the worst traffic in the country, if not the world.
Yeah. And you said, from some experience as well, you are a Lynner. You've had to commute to Boston like so many of us, so you've seen it from experience.
Absolutely. Just one quick tidbit that really illustrates the point of how bad traffic was. This was before the pandemic. My wife went to take a trip. She was going into Boston. I don't know why I put her keys on top of her car. I think I opened up the car door. Maybe I was warming up the car for her and being a nice husband. I left them there by accident. She called me when she was in Boston and said, I can't find my keys, I can't find my keys. I started running through the neighborhood. Where did they fall off? I'm running down the street. Turns out they were on top of the car for her entire commute. So an hour all the way in, there's no rack there either. They just sat right where they were because she's going, 2 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. There's just so much traffic from, all the way up, through Marblehead certainly, but where we get off on the Lynnway, all the way until you get through the Sumner Tunnel. All the way once you're in Boston. The only solution, or the most viable solution to getting rid of traffic is to invest in public transportation, public transit, like you're seeing now with the ferry, but we need to do a much better job and to really address this issue with the sense of urgency I think it demands.
And the Sumner Mitigation Plan, that's a huge step. That's a great thing that delegations been able to push through. But you said you're looking towards the future, so do you see this as like one step in a larger plan?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it helped us get our foot in the door, but the ridership we've seen already, I think, demonstrates that this should be a long-term service here in Lynn. And with that, certainty, riders will start to shift. You can't change your mode of transportation if you think it's going to be here for a couple months and gone for good. If we were able to have the ferry from May through October, like every other ferry service here in the Commonwealth, I think people would use it as a viable alternative during those months. And it would create tremendous opportunities for Lynn. And just on the Sumner end again, I don't want to act like it's going to be all rosy and everything's going to go smoothly. We're tracking this day to day. I just got off a conference call with state transportation leaders. They really, the Haley Driscoll administration has really zoomed in on this to make sure that it's going to be a headache, but we're going to make sure that we're doing everything we can to reroute traffic, to track it in real time. Right now, again, we are encouraging folks to the extent they can to use public transportation. It will lead to a shorter commute for you. In the first 2 weeks, traffic hasn't been, it's unbearable, but it has not been a complete disaster. We expect it's going to be more and more difficult as we head into this. So again, please consider using public transportation while we have some of these reductions in fares in place, as well as increased frequency.
So as you're saying, some of the things that the public can do are using these options to try and help mitigate some of the traffic.
I mean, I think it's like you said, the ferry is an enjoyable ride. It depends where you work, right? It's not going to work for everyone. But for those that can, and you can get to your destination faster than you could by road, it makes sense. Just give it a try. And, certainly we encourage folks that have questions, concerns, criticism, certainly. Call our office. We want to work with you. This is something brand new for the Commonwealth. We have not shut down the Sumner Tunnel for this period of time, length of time and duration in generations, right, since its construction. So we really need to work together and would love to hear from folks on this or any other issue.
Definitely. And I know for our time we are going to have to wrap up in a moment, but is there anything else that you wanted to mention about the plan or what's happening that I hadn't gone over?
I think just, again, I know you've covered everything great. Dani, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to come on to share this and the great resource that you guys have here. It's been really helpful for us to get the message out on this and other issues. I think just, again, we're tracking it day to day. Something as small as, a breakdown one of these lanes could disrupt the traffic even more. So it's not going to be without pain, but we feel that though the T has struggled greatly over this past year, and believe me, we're happy to hear those criticisms as well, that right now we have a system in place for the Blue Line, for the commuter rail line, and for the ferry that will make for a much easier commute for anyone coming north of Boston.
And I want to thank you again for coming on to talk about it and share that message.
Thank you so much.
And once again, my name is Dani Vittori. This has been the Lynn Lowdown, and we'll see you next week with more guests. On deck, the sports update. All three of the Greater Lynn Babe Ruth teams have clinched state tournament playoff berths with wins this past week. The 15s dominated Revere 10-0, with 6 stolen bases and 2 players notching multi-hit games. The 14s sported a commanding 12-2 victory, led by catcher Kaylin Huddle, who threw out 3 runners from behind the plate. In similar fashion, the 13s also scored 12 runs in a 12-1 win, supported by the pitching performances of Liam Carter and Pat Hurley. In the first round of the playoffs, second-seeded Greater Lynn knocked off 7th-ranked 10-1, scoring 8 runs in the 5th inning, supporting an 11 strikeout performance by Jake Peterson. The Navigators are surging, having won 4 of their last 5 games and are inching closer to 500, currently sitting at 14-16. This comes on the back of a 4-1 win over division rival Newport Gulls. Evan Griffiths knocked his 3rd homer in the past 4 games, providing a spark to the offense, alongside Jake Berger and Henry Kazmar, who each went 2 for 4. Starter Jake Hunter threw an impressive 5 shutout innings with 2 hits and 1 walk. The only run Newport managed to score was against reliever Colin Bruder in the 6th. Even more impressive, 3 Navigators, 2 alumni and 1 current player were selected in the 2023 MLB Draft. Jake Driver went first in the 9th round with the 278th overall pick to the Cleveland Guardians, followed by Austin Amaral in the 16th round by the Washington Nationals, with the Toronto Blue Jays taking Jake Hornung as the 484th overall selection. Driver and Amaral were part of the Northeastern Division Championship team in 2021. Hornung is a current catcher for the 2023 Navigators team. Headed into the All-Star break, the Red Sox won their last 5 games, including sweeping the Oakland A's at home. Jarren Duran has been red hot, posting a .424 average with 15 extra base hits in 22 games since June 11th. He has been a vital addition to the Sox outfield, which has moved from 20th in the league in average for 2022 to 1st this season. Despite injuries, the pitching staff has remained strong, with James Paxton going 6 innings for the win on the 8th, with the bullpen taking care of business on the 9th. In the 2023 All-Star Game, closer Kenley Jansen came in for 1 batter, 3 strikes, and a K, before the National League ultimately won, for the first time since 2012, 3-2. Also on the lowdown was one of the founders for the Lynn Music Foundation. He discussed how they came to be and their goals for the hip-hop community in the city. Take a look. Hello and welcome back to the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Dani Vittori, and today we have on Edwin Cabrera, the Executive Director of the Lynn Music Foundation. Thanks for joining us today.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Now, you've been involved in the recording hip-hop scene for quite a while. You are from Lynn, so it's been kind of a long time coming for you.
Yeah. This is recording-wise, I was more like the camera recorder and like the media person and the record label kind of person. So working with like LynnArts has been something I've been doing since 2015 is what kind of when the whole like music thing started. Before that was kind of more focused on filmmaking.
Okay. So you were talking a little bit about it before we came on, how your decision along with 2 other people to start the foundation. You said it kind of started with the Lynn Hip Hop Hall of Fame and sort of it built up over a period of time.
Yeah, so I think that when we started the Lynn Hip Hop Hall of Fame project, which is still ongoing, right now we're actually in the voting aspect of the project where the next 6 months up until October, voting is open for residents of Lynn who are familiar with hip hop culture and want to see artists that they used to listen to or listen to now on that wall to be commemorated and be remembered for their contributions to Lynn hip hop. And so when we started with that project, one thing that we wanted to do was create ways for people to know that this project is happening and, connect with the community about it. And so we started doing events. We did Hip Hop in the Park a couple years ago. This was in 2021. We did Hip Hop in the Park for the first time. And then after that, we just started having more events. That way we can kind of get the word out about the project.
And saw a huge piece on your website when you talk about now is collaboration between you, the people you work with, the artists. That's really seems to be what you strive for.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to really do it. Like if you're trying to make like change, like deep systemic change, like you can't just do it yourself. You have to involve your community. And so, with Lynn Hip Hop Hall of Fame, one thing led to the other to a point where like we need to really organize and if we want to see this to really come to fruition, the whole dream that we have about like really celebrating Lynn hip hop culture, we have to represent these musicians and make sure they're getting the resources they need. Because just through that project and even through the podcast that I did, the Grindhouse podcast, we just got to learn so much about the scene, the Lynn music scene, what it had, what was the strength of it, the creativity, the people, the passion, but also what it lacked and what it needed, which is the venue and the support from the community. And so that's kind of how it all happened. We were like, we need to all kind of unite, and if we want to make things happen here, we got to unite and actually make it happen and put, you know, words into action.
And you talked about, or mentioned it before we came on camera, but why that venue? Why the theater at Gala?
Yeah, so actually, we're at the Neal Rantoul Vault Theater, and this is in the LynnArts building in downtown Lynn. That venue, it was not our first choice because originally we were looking for something. The idea was to have something that was a larger venue, something that could be complementary towards like the Lynn Auditorium. It's a 3,000 seat venue, but it's seated. And so what happens if we had something that was bigger, that was a standing room venue where we can get like a larger artist to come in and perform, and then we can have local artists open up for these larger artists. It was that was like a big thing to pull off. And so what we came across instead was, and thankfully this is because of the Lynn Museum, the Neal Rantoul Vault Theater, which is a black box space. It holds about 150 to 200 people, and it's actually perfect for local artist incubation. So this is where essentially we can start getting these artists who are from Lynn, who are performing, who are talented, a place to be able to perform. And so it ended up being like the perfect place, but it really started by accident because we were looking at another place and, you know, other goals in mind.
And what kind of events do you run out of there? Because you run so many different kinds. Like, what sort of stuff do you do?
Yes, it's a black box theater space, so it could be molded into so many different things and so many different events. We have like a whole seating riser system there, so you can do theater productions, which traditionally has been what's been happening in that space. Yeah. But it also has enough room on the floor to have live music shows, film productions even, dance studio stuff, like pretty much whatever you can dream of doing in a room that's about 1,800 square feet, you can do in the black box theater space. There's a beautiful lighting grid, a sound system. So there's no limit to what can be done in that space, and we hold that space to that. Like we don't turn away, you know, opportunities to bring in the community. That's kind of what our focus is, especially with that space. This is a community incubation space. This is where artists can come in, throw a show, whether it be an album release show, or even an art show. We've had art battles there. We've had stand-up comedy there. We've had so many different things, pop-up shops, that that space lends itself to being malleable in so many different ways.
Oh yeah, the only limit is your imagination, right? What you can imagine.
Exactly, yeah.
So, because I've been to a few of your events, and that's amazing the way that I've seen it become, like I said, 3 different things, and it's crazy to me. It's awesome.
Yeah, and we hope to keep on going. You know, the more things we can think of that will bring the community in and make them feel a part of something, and just give people a place to go. I feel like Lynn, when I was growing up, there wasn't that many places to go and catch a show. You had to either go into Salem or go into Boston. We want to create something in Lynn where people can just go 5 minutes down the road in downtown Lynn and they can catch a comedy show, or, you know, a local artist, or hopefully sometime soon, like, you know, some big artist who's like, whoa, they got something going down there. Let's go down there. That's a touring destination. You know, Lynn is now a touring destination. We want to create that.
Yeah, and you're definitely doing a very good job of it so far. And I'll ask, you know, for people who want to get involved, whether that's donate, sponsor, rent the vault, if you're an artist, like how would you go about doing that?
Check us out. So LynnMusic.org is our website. Definitely check us out there. If you're looking to rent the venue, we do rentals. If you're looking to do a show, you can follow us up. Lynn Music Foundation @gmail.com is our email. On Instagram is Lynn Music Foundation or @Lynn Music Foundation. Follow us. So see what we're doing, see what shows we're doing. And yeah, just engage with us, because our whole thing is about building the community that we have here, and then allowing the community members to utilize a space like that to bring people in, you know, make them feel part of what's happening here in Lynn.
Now, another big draw for you is how much history there is in Lynn in the music scene. So you feel like you can connect to that as well as looking to the future.
Yeah, so LynnArts building used to host WFNX, which is, when I was a kid, that was the radio station actually that, like, before I opened my ears to like other genres of music, it was exclusively hip hop. WFNX was literally the station that got me into rock music. And I was like, oh, what's this? And so it's really cool now, because actually where they would broadcast out of is on the second floor of the LynnArts building. And in that space that they used to broadcast out of, that's our recording studio space, which we're developing, and podcasting suite. And so with that space, it's almost like that history of music gets passed on from them to us. It's really cool.
Yeah, I love the idea. I love the idea of the history and combining and everything. And I mentioned it's you and 2 other people who kind of started it. So how do you all work together? Like, sort of, what are your roles in it?
Yeah, so I want to give a shout out to my partners, Chris Martin and Jay Moon. Chris Martin is our director of operations and also a creative marketing person. You know, he's been somebody that's been working with me. He's also one of my childhood best friends, but him and I are both like huge supporters of like music, and especially like local hip hop music. And so we started Grindhouse Recordings, and that's really like where we came up together, is like, you know, media and record label distribution, promoting that stuff. And then Jay Moon, he's the one of the founders of Keep Moving Forward, the group, the hip hop group, and also our director of artist relations. He's somebody that works with everybody in Lynn. As far as like hip hop music is concerned, he's like one of the people to go to. He can make you sound like you're, you know, Travis Scott or somebody that's like super famous. You know, he has a great ear, and also just a great person to work with. And so the 3 of us together, we kind of like are the 3-headed monster that allows the foundation to keep building on itself.
Yeah, and you're doing very well. I mean, you only started this past January, and you're already, like, you're everywhere.
We started in January, we started operating in January, but this has been a long-term goal, I think, for all of us. Truth be told, I think this is something that we saw happening maybe 5 years down the line, because it just, you know, these things usually happen so slowly. But, you know, thankfully we've gotten some great opportunities to really kind of pick up that pace. And we're not just, if you're going to give us the ball, we're going to watch what we do with it, essentially. And this is what we're doing. We're trying to make something really special for the city of Lynn, and just give Lynn the name it deserves, which is a creative hub. You know, that's what Lynn is, and so that's what we're trying to do with that space.
And you're doing a very impressive job with it. You actually segued very well into my next question, is what were you thinking a little bit for the future, you know, thinking about next?
Yeah, the future, I hope that what we can do as far as the Lynn Music Foundation's goals is to provide the resources, you know, that it takes for an artist to get from the point where they're just making music as a hobby to now they're really thinking about going into career in music, you know. And I think that to get to that point, you need certain elements, right? You need a recording studio. You need to work with other people. You don't know how to collaborate with other people and network with other people. You know, you need to have an ear for your music. You need to have a certain business element, marketing yourself, marketing other people. You know, the whole thing, I think, is just something that involves more than just one person. And what we're trying to do is create like unity within the scene, and also a resource for artists to be able to get to those steps, so that one day they can look at themselves and be like, wow, I started here, but now I'm up here, you know?
Oh, yeah. Like you said, it's not one person can't possibly do everything. They don't know everything about it.
No. Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, with the Lynn Music Foundation, hopefully we're like that place that artists can go to and be like, okay, well, I know that, you know, I can't do it myself, but if I walk into these doors at the LynnArts building and I talk to the Lynn Music Foundation, like, they're going to be able to point me in the right direction, or we can take a workshop here, whether it be an audio production workshop, or catch a show and just kind of like maybe perform at one of our shows. You know, that's kind of the elements that we're bringing. And then in the future, I think what we want to do is also have an opportunity to bring bigger artists, whether it be in that venue or some of a larger venue that we can create in Lynn, where we get touring artists to come to Lynn, you know, and then those artists that are coming through our doors and coming through the vault and performing, and maybe they're growing their audience to a point where now they're opening for some of the bigger guys, and now they're getting the larger room recognition. And, you know, again, that's just going to keep adding to their journey of being a professional musician.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and I'm very excited to see where you go in the future, given this is what you've done in the first 6 months, and that I want to thank you again for coming on to talk about it.
Thank you for having me on. I'm really happy that you guys brought me and, you know, called me for this.
Oh yeah, anytime. We're always glad to. And once again, I'm Dani Vittori. This has been the Lynn Lowdown, and we'll see you next week with more guests. Up next, the community calendar. Next Monday, the 17th, is the first in a series of Van Gogh community art projects. Monday through Thursdays, the weeks of the 17th and the 24th, they will be in a different location for kids to express themselves through art making. Additionally, community organizations and officials will be on site to provide resources as well as free books to take home provided by the REAL program. On Wednesday the 19th, the Food Project is hosting a farm lunch at the Ingalls School, 1 Collins Terrace, from 12 to 1 p.m. It is a way to learn about the mission of the Food Project and speak with members, from teenagers to regional directors, in an informal setting. Come for a walking tour of the farm, followed by lunch featuring items harvested from the farm. Additionally, on the 19th, Mayor Nicholson is hosting a public forum on the city's Unarmed Crisis Response Initiative from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Taking place at Thurgood Marshall Middle School Auditorium, residents can come to hear an update on the Unarmed Response Initiative. Representatives from the Lynn Police Department's Behavioral Health Intervention Program and Elliott Human Services Behavioral Health Center will be in attendance. That brings us to the end of the news for this week. To stay up to date on all the latest happenings, go to LynnTV.org. Also, follow us on social media at Lynn Community Television for press releases, announcements, and event coverage. And go to Lynn Community Television on YouTube for staff and member content on demand for free. I'm Dani Vittori. This is LCTV News, and we will see you next week.